District of Conservation is sponsored by CFACT. To learn more about our sponsor, head over to cfact.org. Thank you so much for listening. Welcome to District of Conservation. I am your host, Gabriella Hoffman. This podcast offers a sober examination into all things hunting, fishing, shooting sports, energy, environment, and the public policy surrounding it. And this podcast also specializes in original interviews that you won't hear elsewhere. Here's what I have for you today. My guest for the program today is Jamey Shirah, a co-founder of the Hunter Recruitment Project. Jamey is a serial entrepreneur. He is an avid hunter, mentor, and he and his two co-founders opened their arms to me and a handful of women back in October for Hunter Recruitment Project 9, which is the 9th hunt that they've done to foster a love of hunting, bring back lapsed hunters, lure in new hunters. And I got to experience the joys of this hunt and befriend a lot of people, Jamey included, at his family farm in South Georgia near Americus. And it was really wonderful. And I wanted to pick Jamey's brain and have him talk about his organization, how they're really taking recruitment, retention, reactivation, R3, to the fullest extent, not just talking about it, but actually doing something about it. And I think you guys will really like what he has to say. His backstory is really fascinating, and his group is definitely worth supporting. So if you want to support Jamey and his group, definitely encourage you to do so. And I think this episode will inspire you to support his cause, get involved, and also get inspired to introduce new people to hunting. So here's my conversation with Jamey Shirah of the Hunter Recruitment Project. Thanks so much for joining the podcast, Jamey. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, great to talk to you as well.
What led you to get involved in hunting, and talk about your background?
So I grew up in South Georgia in the middle of nowhere. Our closest major grocery chain was 45 minutes away. So I guess you could say I was pretty much born into the outdoor industry. My dad was a farmer, mom was a teacher, and my dad was I guess forever our family were farmers. My grandfather, great grandfather, and his father were all farmers. So I guess as far as I know back fifth generation. And during that time, I spent my whole life when the sun came up, my mom kicked us outdoors and we couldn't come back inside until the sun went down. And so kind of spent my whole life outdoors and in the woods and building forts and climbing trees and trying not to break bones and all that good stuff that happens. But so when I was probably, I guess going into middle school, my dad started a quail plantation, and my grandfather was always a huge quail hunter, loved it, wild birds only, always had a dog. Actually, I'm fairly certain quail hunted with a German Shepherd at one point. And, he just loved doing it, and he passed that passion to my dad, and my dad started a commercial quail plantation, and it was known as Shirah Plantation. And now that has been sold, and it's still in operation. It's called reactivation plantation. Pretty well known quail preserve down in South Georgia. It's actually in Newton. And so kind of spent my whole life outdoors, and then transitioned into kind of the commercial side of it and taking people hunting, and got a glimpse of what it was like to take people hunting at an early age, specifically people that had never really shot a gun before, and they come in and we teach them how to shoot the shotgun, and we take them to the skeet range, and they're shooting clays, and they hit one, and it's like, oh my God, wow. And then, they go to hitting several more, and then they're ready to go into the field, and then they shoot, at a few birds, and they don't hit any, and I can't do this. And then they finally hit a bird, and it's like, that connection's made. And then you serve, fried quail that night, and the circle's kind of completed. So that's really, and I've just continued, that's really kind of how I guess got started and still am into the hunting industry. My background from work standpoint, I went to University of Georgia, graduated with a degree in economics, and then started a restaurant in 2010. So probably an ill decision at the time. At least we were told that by a bunch of people. It's still in operation today, and we've got a portfolio of 6 restaurants. And I guess you could say I'm kind of an entrepreneur. We've got a construction company, we've got a wellness company, and we've also got recently a firewood supply company. So it's a busy time of the year for me.
That's really cool about your entrepreneurial background. And which of the restaurants do you manage? I think some of my listeners may be familiar with them.
So we're all in the Southeast. In Atlanta, we've got the Ivy, which is a big sports bar. We've got the Family Dog, which is a little neighborhood pub. In Birmingham, we have what's called Uptown Cantina, and a place that's been there for about 8 years now called the Southern. And they're both in a new development called the Uptown District, which is right downtown Birmingham, which is an amazing city if you haven't been there. And in Nashville on Broadway, we have what's called the Valentine. So like a 4-story honky tonk. Oh yeah, I forgot one more place in Atlanta called Smoke Show. So it's a barbecue spot. And in the process of getting all our documents signed and completed for our 3rd place in Birmingham as well. It's going to be in Mountain Brook.
That's exciting. And while you're running these businesses in the restaurant business and outside the restaurant business, you're also co-managing a nonprofit, which is how we connected a few months ago. And you invited me and a handful of other really impressive ladies to go hunting. We had different experience levels through a project that you and 2 other guys started called the Hunter Recruitment Project. So talk about the genesis of the group, your mission statement, and what you guys hope to do before we go into the ladies hunt.
Yeah, for sure. So Baker Levitt, Michael Heil, and I all got together, probably, I guess, 4 or 5 years now. We've known each other since 2010, so 12 years now, at least. These guys are like brothers to me. We've hunted together Baker and I have hunted together on 3 different continents. It's always been something that, again, being part of my life kind of from the beginning, those guys also have had the bug since they were little, and just something that is something that we find kind of pulls us together and pulls us out of our daily lives and really allows us to share some, fellowship together and create memories that you never forget. And so, probably 4 years ago, my dad had bought a new farm and we were developing it. And that's kind of what my dad does now. It's, he still farms. He quit farming and started farming again. He can't get it out of his blood, but, he develops kind of plantations tract, land for people looking for hunting tracks and stuff like that. So, we were working on this piece of property, and I've always taken some new people hunting, and to see that kind of reaction. I think Baker's nephew had come down and shot his first deer. His girlfriend, Melissa, had come and shot a deer. My wife, girlfriend at the time, I'd taken and shot deer, and a couple other friends. And I've done it my whole life, but I guess as I've gotten older, there's a lot stronger emotional attachment to that and seeing people's reaction. And it just kind of clicked. I actually went to an Everly Stock event called Out There in Idaho. And while it's not hunting, it's a lot of shooting and kind of outdoor activities and archery. And just to see people, their switches flip, it really kind of caught something in my mind that was like, man, I need to figure out, how can we turn this new piece of property into something that allows me to take people hunting at scale, quote unquote. And I say scale because it's kind of hard to scale hunting operation for multiple people. But gives us an opportunity to take, anywhere from 7 to 15 people hunting at a time. And we have what we like to call at this new farm a target rich environment. And there is an absolutely tremendous population of deer on our piece of property. So one thing that we like to say we offer is kind of 100% success rate. I mean, it is low pressure, it's simple, it's easy, it's fun, and that's really where we like to focus. The HRP hunts. It's fun. Hunting's fun, and we want to keep it fun, and we don't want to put pressure on people. And so, we sat around the table 3 to 4 years ago and said, let's put something together. Let's figure out how this can work, and then, see if it has legs. And we did our first event before we ever had a nonprofit, our first official event before we had a kind of everything organized and put together. And we had been doing it, for years up to that point, but our first real HRP event, and it just blew up. And all of us kind of in the recap meeting, we're sitting around like, okay, we've got something. So we need to really kind of run full speed towards this and figure out how we can take it to the next level.
You guys are doing kind of recruitment, retention, reactivation kind of independently of like a game agency, but taking what they've set up and using a nonprofit to properly execute it and bring new people, or bring people who are kind of in the beginning stages or advanced beginner stages to kind of take them to the next level. So was it largely wanting to help increase the numbers of hunters, because we had seen those postmortems or those kind of obituaries, the hunting is on its last legs, it's about to die, go extinct. Was it kind of propelled by that, or again, more so about your interest of introducing people regardless of its status?
So originally it went regardless of the status of how many hunters there are or not. I knew how beneficial it could be. Sitka made a film, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago that was about a veteran that had started bow hunting and basically, helping his PTSD by shooting his bow. And then that led into hunting and his kind of talk around that. One of the guys at Black Rifle went to Africa on a hunt with Baker and had the exact same kind of realization of like, hey, this is the closest thing to deployment that had a positive outcome. And so I knew, like, from those two kind of specific experiences and tons of other anecdotes I've heard throughout the years, I said, hey, like, I think, just looking at kind of ways society's getting more and more modernized and people are just sucked into their phone and attached, like, how can I do something that somewhat counteracts that? Additionally, at the time when we started this, and especially when we were kind of formulating the idea, the reports of, hunting is dying, blah, 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 blah. It really kind of was just another kind of pin, in the hat of like, okay, like this does make sense. Since then there's been tons of reports coming out about the soaring amount of hunters, and I'm happy for that. I think it's, the more people we have into it, the better. One thing we really focus on though is proper, training and proper etiquette and proper gun safety and proper hunting safety, and stuff like that. Most people are taught by a family member, or a really close family friend. And some of the times that is not done the right way. And, we want to make sure that we're super ethical, super safe, super focused on doing things the right way, from a very simple standpoint. And so there's also a lot of people that don't have that person to teach them, that don't have that person to take them, that don't even have a gun range, that don't have any idea where to start. And so if we can be a group that takes those people and puts them through the right training and puts them through the right, informational sessions and stuff like that, to give them a firm base to when so that then they can go to the YouTubes or they can go to the family friend or whatever and use those additional resources to hunt. Like, I think that's really, really our goal.
I got to see it firsthand when you guys invited me down for HRP9. And for me, I have always kind of come from hunting a little removed from it. I wasn't ever opposed to it. And 5 years ago, I really got seriously into it. And I consider myself an advanced beginner. So for me, going to the hunt really wasn't a first time exposure. I've gotten one deer before, but it was new for me that I was successful kind of christening Baker's muzzle loader, because I had kind of my back and forth with muzzle loaders, because the first time I ever went deer hunting was with a muzzle loader. My one mentor in Virginia put me on that. And it was a little intimidating as a platform to use for someone who has never done it, sits in a blind and is expected to use it. So for me, it was initially intimidating. I started to target practice with muzzle loaders over the years. And then I think by the time I came down to you guys, I was a lot more confident. And right before last sundown, I was able to execute the hunt and get the deer on the last day of muzzleloader season, which was a lot of fun on your family farm, of course. And so for me, it was not a new experience, but I loved seeing that my friend Cindy was able to get her first deer. And I know some of the other ladies too that were in attendance. Sydney got her first deer, and a couple other, I think a good handful of the ladies got their first deer. So talk about why you wanted to have a women's only hunt for this most recent iteration of HRP 9?
So, I believe that people are going to be less worried about each other and what they're doing when you're kind of all coming from the same boat, right? And if you're kind of from the same level of experience and the same sex, it seems to be a little bit easier for everyone to listen. What I knew and was reaffirmed is that women are definitely much better listeners than men, and definitely made it a lot easier. Like, when you give, kind of guidance on what to do, like they're like, okay, yeah, sure. Like this, I don't know what I'm doing, so I should listen. And sometimes that doesn't follow through with men, but I've been friends with Chris Cook for quite 3 or 4 years now, just through going to archery events and kind of being connected to a lot of people in the outdoor industry, a lot of the same people in the outdoor industry. And Chris reached out to me probably beginning of this year, and said, hey, I do, and she has what's called the Cook Ranch in Julian, California. Mm-hmm. And they have archery range. They actually raise pigs, cooks pigs. And so they do butchering classes. She's added so many more things into what they do. Like there's homesteader classes, like how to make jams, how to put vegetables up, how to make bread, like all kind of self-reliant angled stuff, which I think is hugely important in their skills that are definitely not being flexed and or used nearly as much. And we need to keep those things alive. But she reached out to me and said, hey, I've got this women's group that comes through and we do women's specific events. I'd love to figure out some way to work it into what you guys are doing. And I was just like, absolutely, no question. Love to have a women's focused event. And that kind of was the birth of it. And it was incredible. It was awesome. And it's something that we'll probably continue to do every year specifically.
It was a lot of fun. I had a great time and I made some lifelong friendships from that event, from ladies I hadn't known before, gotten to know them. And it really was a good environment. Like you said, you guys were giving us the rundown of how to remember the proper safety rules, how to, what to expect when we go to the blind, what the expectations were. You guys fed us delicious meals. Melissa was a great cook, as well to supplement that. And your dad was a wonderful host. Your family were great hosts. You gave great motivational talks and encouragement to the ladies. And I think almost everyone was able to get a deer in that 2 to 3 day span that you had us over down in South Georgia. And so I loved it. It was perfect weather. It wasn't too cold, too hot, a little too warm, I think maybe on the first day that we all hunted, but it was okay. And it was beautiful setting because I hadn't gone to South Georgia. Most of my visits to Georgia for hunting or outdoor experiences is usually in North Georgia with a client that I've had there at one of the fly fishing lodges that are up in that region. And so it was totally new for me. I loved seeing it. It was as a contrast to North Georgia. And it was just such a beautiful environment. And I'll always remember getting a first deer on the muzzleloader in that platform, specifically in your family's farm and all. So I think most of the women had a great takeaway from it. And so I loved it. And I was able to, I sent you guys a donation. I wanted to thank you guys for that. Of course, I believe in the mission and I want people to support you guys because you're not just talking, you're actually putting this into action and taking new or kind of relapsed or beginner advanced hunters into the field. Do you guys have any plans to expand outside of Georgia? I know it's easier to do these kind of events where in places that are familiar, where you have resources, but do you plan to host it in different locations with partners or people you work with, or you're just going to specifically stay in Georgia?
Yeah. So, a couple of things. Appreciate, the compliments and it was amazing having you down, and I'm actually headed to the farm this weekend, taking a couple more people, and I'm going to get to the processor and get your deer so I get it shipped back up to you. Appreciate that. The question about expansion. Yes. It's definitely on our, kind of horizon. Our business plan, so to say, for this HRP would be to partner with, so we kind of set up this year, the before HRP, right? Which is with the Cook Ranch, and what they're doing and being able to have people that have gone through an archery course, that have shown they can shoot, that are shown that they're focused, shown that they're like dedicated to doing the right thing, is a great funnel for us. And then we can bring them in and actually put them on a hunt. As I said, it's a target-rich environment. One of the things that I've found through hunting is very, very important is being able to see the animals in the wild with a weapon in your hand, because it really changes the way that you perceive that animal when there's an intention to kill it, right? And being able to see those animals, being able to be around them, watch them move, watch how they act is really imperative to being able to develop your hunting skill. And so if we can be kind of step one, is the Cook Ranch and people like that are teaching people, how to shoot, how to rifle, bow, muzzleloader, whatever, hunter safety, basic stuff, then we're able to take them into the field. Then what's the next step, right? It's a little bit further of an advancement into hunting, whether it's, elk out west, or whether it's pronghorn, or, can really diversify into anything, but something that's a little bit more challenging, that the hunter is able to take kind of 2 years of growth and development and put themselves into a position where they're searching out an outfitter, or they've got their own land that they're going to figure out how to set up, stands on and kill animals on their own property or whatever. I think it's very much kind of a process that we want to take people from the beginning to being a quote unquote finished hunter. I don't know if there's such a thing, because I learn something every single time that I go into the woods. But if we can at least give them a strong platform in which they can develop themselves further off of, that's really our goal. As you said, you created kind of some lifelong relationships. Every event that we have, it happens, and we have text threads from every single event. We have email threads where people are still sending photos of, cooking this deer that I shot, 3 years ago or 2 years ago or whatever. And it's really cool to see that and see how people are still keeping those thoughts alive. And, I still have people reaching out like, hey, I just started, I've rifle hunted with you guys. I just started bow hunting. This is like my land. This is like a track, that I bought, and I'm trying to figure out how to set it up. And I'll even, take time to go through that with them and say, look, well, here's like a funnel. I would probably look for deer here, put some cameras up here, try to figure out, where your deer are moving and all that. And so, it's not just kind of a one and done, like, thanks for coming. Good luck. I keep kind of contact with all these people. And I think that's something that's very, very beautiful about the outdoor industry. Everybody's kind of, well, not everybody, but most people are really willing to help each other kind of get better at it.
It's true. And the fact that you guys were able to open up these opportunities for us and for others you've worked with before, I mean, it's extremely generous, because people, I don't know if it's a problem in Georgia, but in Virginia, it's a little hard to work with landowners. Some of them don't want to open up their properties. I think they're starting to slowly shed that hesitation, because if they're wanting to keep the hunting tradition alive, they have to recognize that maybe we can partner with nonprofits or other people and open up our ranches and farms to these individuals to keep these traditions alive. We need some management. Let's bring them on down. So I think people are starting to say, yeah, I'm not losing anything by inviting people to my house or to my property to help us with bear or deer or hogs or something of that nature. And I would hope other groups do replicate your efforts. And I don't know if you guys work with the wildlife agency in Georgia in specificity, but it'd be good if they reached out to you and said like, hey, this is a model. They're here in our state. I'm not sure if they have reached out to you in that capacity, but you guys have created something really unique and fascinating. And like I said, it's action oriented. It's not just talking. A lot of people talk, like you said, in the industry, and they're not impactful. And I fully believe you guys are truly impactful, even just in the short amount of time I got to know you all and see your work. I don't normally say that with people I deal with, but you guys really impressed me with the showing and what it does. And as someone who covers the outdoor beat, like it's so rare for me to find people who are truly doing impactful work. So you guys should know that you are having your work seen and felt and appreciated by many, many people. So
thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. And I know you guys did a little bit with fly fishing. Do some of your events incorporate fly fishing for veterans at times too?
Yeah, so I'm glad you touched on the veteran thing. So we're not veteran specific. We're veteran focused. Is what I like to say. Most of the people that come, they're either veterans or they're tied to the veteran community very strongly. It's something that's just important to us. And yeah, we do in the spring. We do a fly fishing event. We're working on a turkey event this spring as well, which is very hard because no one wants you coming to hunt their turkeys. The turkey
true.
population kind of across the U.S. or Southeast specifically has had a hard time recently. And, so people are very we haven't killed a turkey on our property. We've killed one in 3 years, I think. And that's by design, just watching the population grow, kind of managing predators and all that. But there are places that have a lot of turkeys, and luckily one of the people that came on the women's hunt, Caitlin, she is, we're working together with her trying to put together a turkey hunt as well. But yeah, fly fishing, Northeast Georgia, there is some phenomenal fishing. There's wild, obviously everywhere. There are a few stocked rivers as well, and that's always very fun. The one we did a day in wild and a day in the stock for people that had never fly fished before. And, it was epic.
That's incredible. Yeah. And I think Baker is trying to wrestle me in somehow. I don't know in what capacity. I told him I could be a mentor if someone wanted to learn how to fly fish. I think I'm okay in terms of my experience level. I've helped people catch fish, but I would love to help, even volunteer if you guys need some mentors for those individuals. For sure. And so if people like what they're hearing about Hunter Recruitment Project, how can they help support you guys, get you across the line financially, send donations your way, collaborate with you? Dish out on how people can help you guys.
Yeah. So, kind of the easiest ways obviously are Instagram and or, website. So hunterrecruitmentproject.com on the internet, and Hunter Recruitment Project, at Hunter Recruitment Project, on Instagram. We have donation page on the site. Any and all donation is obviously very, very much welcome and appreciated. We run this thing off donations, but there's also a lot of personal financing that goes into it as well. As you'd say, it's a labor of love, and we have companies and we have people that donate stuff other than money. As you were at the event, kind of our main sponsorships come from Black Rifle, Eastman's, Everly Stock, Killcliff, Mossberg, Loophole. But there's also kind of product sponsors, and the product sponsors, have is equal amount of importance because they create the swag bags and they kind of affect the experience, where you're getting like this cool bag and it's got, we had Protect, Bubs, Naturals, Battle Bars, Buildcraft bought everybody a tourniquet and stuff, which is obviously very important to have out in the woods. And so, there's any number of ways we love, any help is, like I said, welcome and greatly appreciated. It is a very, very expensive thing to do. And so anything is very much welcome.
I will make sure everyone gets the proper links to donate to you guys. I think I'll even include some of our conversation for the overview I'm going to do of the hunt to kind of splice it with some of your musings. I think that'd be great.
Okay.
So I'll have a lot of properties to come out from the hunt still, because I want to also, when you guys send over the meat, I'll talk about, I received my meat. This is so great, kind of big picture thing. So I still have a video I haven't failed to deliver on that. I just want to make sure I have all digital properties. So anytime you guys need help or pushing from me, I will dispense to the appropriate people. I have a lot of connections, hopefully a lot of people who have, money to be able to donate, some financial support. I think people should support an effort like HRP. It's needed because the state agencies just can't do enough, and they need private individuals and nonprofits like yours to help kind of get more people across the line, especially with so much interest in hunting now. And everyone's worried about prices of meat, how to nourish their bellies in these really expensive times with inflation. So hunting is starting to be an alternative, very viable alternative.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if nothing more, just the realization that maybe you shouldn't put your wholehearted belief in the system being able to provide for you is enough to at least get people interested in the event that there is something that happens. They can, help take care of themselves. But, for sure. I mean, people, I think, have lost a little bit of trust in the whole food system with with all the different documentaries and whatnot coming out, looking deeper into that. So we like to provide an alternative.
And you guys do. I really appreciate you coming on, Jamey. Thank you so much. And I will point people to Hunter Recruitment Project as best as I can going forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gabriella, and have a good afternoon and a great weekend.
Thanks for listening to District of Conservation. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you haven't already, make sure you find us on your preferred podcast player. We largely circulate on Apple, Spotify, and countless others, but those are our two big podcast platforms we want to push. Make sure you're subscribed there, especially on Apple. If you like the podcast a lot, go leave us some reviews. We'd be more than grateful to get some 5-star reviews from you guys. Moreover, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and a little bit on YouTube. We don't populate there, but connect with us on social media. Find me personally on social media with blue check marks. Super easy to find, and I would love to hear your feedback and know who you'd like to see on the podcast. Thanks for listening to District of Conservation. Stay tuned for the next episode.